We're talking today about modern 4-inch Iron Man. Hey, it's Pat here with another talking point. I just thought today we would talk about something that I guess I always talk about things that I love, but this is something that has been something of a cultural phenomenon for the past 10 years, I think it is. And that's Iron Man. Of course, it's huge with the movies that have been out, but something else that's been pretty prolific has been the release of lots and lots of Iron Man action figures. And while there's plenty of 6-inch ones to be had, and there's tons of those coming out now, today I thought I would talk about my favorite scale, which is the 4-inch action figures. Now, most of these action figures come from the movie lines, but they actually started a little bit earlier than that. In 2009, Marvel Universe was released by Hasbro. It changed names over the years. I think in 2014 it became the Marvel Infinite series, and in 2016 it kind of confusingly took on the same name as the 6-inch line, which is the Marvel Legends line, so it was like the Marvel Legends 4-inch scale. And you really don't see much of anything from that scale anymore. Hopefully there's more stuff coming, but there's not a whole lot. I think I recently saw that there's a bagged figure that we may be seeing coming to like a dollar store. Most of the details on the front look like they're painted on rather than sculpted on. But I thought that it would be kind of neat to take a look back at these because there have been so many of them that have come out over the years. I thought I'd just kind of give a general rundown of where they were available and then take a look at them, take a look at some of the ones that maybe you haven't seen. Like I said, Marvel Universe and its various names lasted from 2009 till about 2017. But the bulk of these figures for Iron Man naturally came from the Iron Man movie lines. Iron Man 2 was actually the first movie that had figures from Hasbro in 4-inch scale for Iron Man. They had done some for the first Iron Man movie, but all of those were in 6-inch. The 4-inch ones didn't start until Iron Man 2. And thankfully Hasbro released all of the armors from the first movie, as well as a ton of others. I really enjoyed the way that they designated each of these. They kind of had 3 different subsets inside that Iron Man 2 line. They had the movie series, which is any armor that you would actually see in the movie. And then they had the comic series, which is interesting because, yeah, they did have the comic book line going with the Marvel Universe at the same time, but they released a bunch of some of the same ones actually in the movie line using updated sculpts, and some of the ones that had not been released as of that time. Then there was the third subset of the Iron Man 2 movie line, which was the concept series. Now the concept series, you might take a guess and say, oh, that's just Hasbro getting creative and repainting things to get the most money out of the tooling and to provide a lot of product. And part of that's true, but some of those are some of the best ones in the line. And in addition to that, not all of those were being made up by Hasbro because they paid very close attention to the concept art for the Iron Man movies, and actually a lot of them were abandoned concepts that didn't make it to the movie. As a matter of fact, one of the concept artists for Iron Man 1, and I believe Iron Man 2 and some of the sequels, was a gentleman by the name of Phil Saunders, and he has a blog where he takes a look at some of these and says, "Never one to let anything go to waste, Marvel and Hasbro have put out the Iron Man 2 concept series of 4-inch action figures. What does concept series mean, you ask? Well, dear reader, it means some of them are based on my unused concepts from Iron Man 1. Then beyond that, more Iron Man figures were obviously released for the Avengers movies, and the other really big Iron Man toy line was for Iron Man 3. They released Iron Man assemblers, which allowed kids or collectors to pop the limbs off of the Iron Man figures and reconfigure them. So I really didn't know what I was getting into whenever I first started collecting these. The way that it happened was, I remembered having some Secret Wars figures as a kid, and I thought, you know, I really enjoyed this new Iron Man movie series that was coming out. Iron Man 2 was out, and I thought to myself, you know, I really like War Machine. In the old Secret Wars toy line, actually, Iron Man was James Rhodes. So I thought, well, you know, it'd be cool if I just picked up a War Machine figure here and there. And I remember I walked into Walmart and I was still trying to resist buying them. And I noticed that of the 3 War Machines that were on the shelf, among all these Iron Man figures in the Iron Man 2 line, there was one War Machine that had a blue arc reactor and blue eyes, and there was another War Machine that had a red arc reactor and red eyes. And I thought to myself, you know what? If I'm going to buy these, I'm probably going to regret passing up on whichever one of these is the more difficult to find variant. So I bought myself a figure that day, and I was hooked. It wasn't very long before I thought to myself, you know what? I'll just buy just the Iron Man figures that are in the movies. Then I'll stop. So I started getting, you know, the Mark 1, and that one was quite different than the rest. And the Mark 5, that suitcase armor, it's pretty cool. It looks very different than the rest. So I had, from Iron Man 2, I think that it was like the first 6 or 7 armors, and I thought that I would stop there. But then there was a sale, and how can you pass up the one that looked like the old Secret Wars figure? How could you pass up the ones that are just pretty cool? So I just started buying more and more of them. And then the later waves started coming out, and they started getting even more creative, and those ones were going to be harder to find. So I better get those now. And the next thing I knew, I had pretty much the entire Iron Man 2 toy line. So as I was buying those, I started buying some of them here and there online, and as luck would have it, I ended up buying some of them that I don't think, well, I know for certain were never released. And in the process, I also was teased by some of them that I didn't get, that I know were never released. So I thought that if I'm going to cover all these figures, it's going to get really mundane if I go one by one and go, this is a different Iron Man figure, and he's red and gold, and look at the shoulders on him. It's just going to get to be too much. So there's a lot to look at, but I'm just going to show you some of them that you may not actually be able to see elsewhere, or that may be more difficult to find as you look online. I definitely mentioned Phil Saunders' work, and to go over the few of them that he mentioned specifically in his blog, he said that the first is based on my stealth suit concept and is known as the hypervelocity armor. The interesting thing is that they renamed his stealth suit concept art as the hypervelocity armor for its release in the Iron Man 2 toy line. But this got resculpted in the Iron Man Assemblers toy line, and Hasbro renamed it the Stealth Tech Armor Iron Man. So he got the stealth part of his name back eventually. And then the second is Deep Dive Armor. That almost ended up being nearly the same. It was really interesting to me that I purchased this figure for the Iron Man 2 movie, and then because the Iron Man 3 director referred back to some of the concept art for Iron Man 2, the figure that appears in Iron Man 3 had been released in Iron Man 2. They changed the color around a little bit on it, but it's definitely the same design for the same purpose. Then he went on to say, and the last is one of my first attempts at War Machine, back when it was to be additional snap-on armor for the Mark III and worn by Stark, now dubbed the Power Assault Armor. There's also a person named Josh Nizzi. His concept artwork for the movies, Hasbro also released some of those. So they were definitely digging deep and making sure that they weren't just doing things that were in the movie, but basing things on some of the concept art for the movie so that you really got that full experience of everything that was going into Marvel Cinematic Universe at the time. Strangely, one of the Iron Man figures that is best known for being unreleased is one that actually did come out. This was a Target exclusive 3-pack, or at least it was announced to be. It's called the Undercover Assault Set, and it features the actor likenesses for Iron Man, War Machine, and Black Widow. And the interesting thing is that we waited for this to come out in the United States because it was announced as a Target exclusive, and then it just didn't show up and didn't show up. Now this one I ended up getting because it was released in parts of Europe. It can't really be counted as something that's unreleased, but I feel like I would be missing something if I didn't cover it here, because it is a pretty significant set. The ones that were showing up on the secondary market early were not quite the same as the ones that are in this set. You could see that the facial hair on Iron Man is not quite the same, and on War Machine, the font that is on his side was written in a different way. And unfortunately, the Black Widow figure is a completely different sculpt. This figure is much shorter than anything that did come out in the United States, and in some ways I'm really kind of hoping that this will still see some kind of wider release. With a new head sculpt or even a new paint job, I really think that this could look like a really sharp action figure. But moving on from there, some of the other ones that you may find interesting is here is this silver and blue Iron Man figure. Other than the fact that I know that this figure did not get released anywhere, I don't know what its intended purpose was. Hasbro was releasing a lot of exclusives at the time, and this may have been for a future wave. It may have also been something that was intended maybe for like a Kmart 3-pack or a Target exclusive set. They also did Toys R Us exclusive sets. One of the other figures that's kind of hard to find is this one. He's pretty cool. He comes with this weird hoverboard. So it's like a hoverboard Iron Man. And the strange thing about this is that I was well aware of this before it ended up being released. I had to buy this from Canada because I don't think that it ever got released in the United States. It was a multi-pack of, I think they called it the original Avengers or something like that. I'll have to look it up. Sorry, I don't know off the top of my head what that was called. But it was a big multi-pack, and I was hesitant to buy it at first because I'd already gotten the figure. I wanted the hoverboard. But as you'll see up here, it looks like I have the same figure. They're not quite the same. The differences are the red. This one's a little bit more of a candied red, and it's thin in some spots. This one's maybe manufactured a little bit better. But the weird thing about that is that before I bought that one, I'd actually seen the same sculpt online in an auction that I did not win. But here is the online auction picture, and as you can see, this was going to be some kind of Arctic Iron Man suit. There is a 6-inch Iron Man figure that is somewhat similar to this. In addition to a silver and blue Iron Man, a metallic blue War Machine. Now, a lot of people will look at this War Machine and go, now isn't that the one released later on for the Iron Man 2 line? Because Iron Man 2 actually, whenever it was kind of fizzling out as a toy line, they released, I think it was the 7th wave, and renamed it. I think what they were trying to do was to make it move beyond the movie and have a life of its own that was separate from the movie here. And it changed its name from Iron Man 2 to Iron Man the Armored Avenger in 2011. And there was a War Machine figure released in there that is silver and blue, but it's not this one. So there's the released War Machine figure, and then there's this mystery figure. Again, I don't know what this one was meant for. It could have been one of the Kmart packs. It could have been for the Iron Man Armored Avenger or something unreleased in the Iron Man 2 line. All I know is that it's awesome, and here it is. Speaking of War Machine, I also have this one that is just very strange. It is packaged on a War Machine card, but I really want to note that what sometimes happens with these figures whenever they're samples is a sample figure will be packaged on an existing figure's card back. So it is a War Machine figure in here, and the figure looks exactly like the War Machine that came out, and the package actually says War Machine. But as you'll see, those aren't War Machine's accessories. Those are the accessories that were released with the Munitions Armor Iron Man. So Munitions Armor Iron Man had these parts, and they were in red and silver, and the colors that you'd kind of expect to see on an Iron Man figure. So it's not really clear to me if this is actually a War Machine figure that was potentially coming out, or if this is a test shot Iron Man piece in with the War Machine tooling that was also used for the Munitions Armor Iron Man in some kind of crazy sample. So I don't know how much of this is coincidence, or if this actually is a War Machine that we didn't get. If it's a War Machine we didn't get, it's honestly maybe a little bit boring because the only difference is the accessories, but it's definitely something that, you know, caught my eye and I thought was worth noting. In those Kmart 3-packs that I mentioned, There was a clear holographic Iron Man for the Mark 6, I think it's the Mark 6 armor. Whenever Iron Man is designing his suit, there is a point where Jarvis is helping him design it by having it appear as a hologram. And Hasbro was so smart, and they made that as an action figure. So that came out in one of the Kmart 3-packs with 2 other figures. And I actually have an earlier one. I think he's right here. I love the way this figure looks. It almost looks like it's some kind of powered up, energized suit more than it does a hologram armor. So Hasbro made the right choice, in my opinion, of making it more of a clear blue before it came out. In addition to that, one of the other things that was released in the Kmart 3-packs was a repaint of the Mark 5 armor. That's the one that came from the briefcase in Iron Man 2. They repainted that for Kmart in what was called the Biometal armor, and it was done in a translucent red with some brownish black details. And that figure, strangely, I actually found instead of it being translucent, it is actually opaque red. Now we get to one of the ones that is probably one of my favorites of the ones that did not come out, and it is this very strange translucent blue and opaque yellow Iron Man. Here it is pictured, and as you can see, it's something of a mystery to me. The first one that I found had these clear legs. They're very, very transparent legs, and I thought, wow, this is amazingly different. I don't really know what they're going for here, but it definitely works. And then as I kept on buying these figures, I found one that had translucent blue legs instead of clear legs. So that's definitely weird. And then as things went on even more, I got excited because I found a third one that also had translucent legs. So I thought, wow, you know, this probably isn't just somebody that popped test shot legs on here. A test shot would be whenever, you know, they're testing a mold, they use just whatever color and they make the plastic, you know, whatever it may be in order to test the parts. So I thought maybe this was just like an accidental set of clear legs on here. But now that I found 2 of them, that doesn't seem to be the case. Now you'll notice with the later one that I found, he's in not as good of a shape. He's missing the details, the little added sculpts on his shoulders. They've been torn off. And some of the paint's actually been removed. I thought at first in some of the pictures that I was shown to buy him that he actually was silver. He's not silver. It's a lot of the yellow color and yellow paint, for whatever reason, has been removed. Again, I don't know what the intended purpose was of this figure, other than the fact that it exists out there, here it is, and I think it is beautiful. Now, one of the other things that was going to come out for the Iron Man, the Armored Avenger line, again, that is the toy line that was the follow-up to Iron Man 2, were a couple of mech suits. They were going to release one for Iron Man and one for War Machine, and both of those got canceled. But interestingly, they got recycled for the Avengers movie. The Iron Man mech did end up getting released, but they changed it a bit. Some of the equipment that was originally only going to come with War Machine in the Avengers toy line ended up coming with Iron Man as well. And then rather than putting War Machine in the Avengers toy line, Hasbro decided to take that and repaint it instead for Captain America to have his own mech suit. Now, they come with a lot of little details that are different between the two, but if you look at those originals, it really shows that the difference was going to be not only the accessories that they came with, but the fact that the opening that shows off the arc reactor for Iron Man was triangular, and the arc reactor for War Machine's mech suit was going to be the circular one. And of course that brings us to some of the final ones that were released in the Iron Man Assemblers toy line. Again, that toy line was great and included some figures that were based on some of the concepts that were being put into the Marvel Cinematic Universe that didn't actually end up on screen. So while people kind of dismissed that line whenever it came out because, well, at least I saw a lot of people dismiss it. It sold pretty fast as far as what my experience was. Some of those exclusives did not last on shelves very long at all, and now they're really expensive. There's one figure in there that the arc reactor, when you press his stomach, it lights up. And that thing is bright. Like, you don't even want to look directly into the arc reactor as you light it up. You can light up a room with that thing. It's pretty much just a flashlight built into the toy. One of the ones I definitely want to point out is in the Assemblers line. I can't say for sure if it's an intentional reference or not, but there is an Iron Man armor that looks incredibly like a Cobra bat to me. Not only is it black and silver with yellow, orangish yellow highlights, but the fact that it's an Assembler's figure means that that arm pops off, and you can put on a different arm that has a gun on it that really is a lot like the feature of the original Cobra bat. So probably some of our viewers may be interested in that, since a lot of us are G.I. Joe collectors. A couple of the cool things that were going to come out really were kind of upsetting, because one of them was the Igor armor. Igor has that scene in the movie where Tony Stark calls upon him, and he rushes in and, you know, comes to the rescue and holds up part of the collapsing structure. It's really unfortunate that one didn't come out, but while everybody always talks about that, it's important to remember that was actually part of a wave of 3 figures that Hasbro did show. They even did the press release images and showed it off at Toy Fair or San Diego Comic-Con, one of those shows it was shown. It was part of a wave of 3. The other 2 were the Neutrino Armor Iron Man and the Artillery Armor Iron Man. So neither one of those came out, and of course Igor did not come out, and I really don't know if that ever made it to plastic. I have not ever seen it, so it's possible that those were just done by hand and in-house at Hasbro, so I don't know if tooling exists. If it does, I would love to see more Iron Man assemblers. So thanks again, and like, share, and subscribe, and please leave a comment if you know of any other unreleased figures. I know that there are some other figures in the Iron Man toy line that are not actually Iron Man, and some of those didn't get released, like Whiplash, and I think some of the drones. There are some other unreleased things out there that are worth talking about as well, but I just kind of know about and covered the Iron Man figures here. So if you know about any of those, or you have anything else to talk about, please leave a comment, like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff, and thanks again, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching this episode of Articulated Points. We hope you enjoyed it, and we'd appreciate it if you would like, share, and subscribe. If you'd like to learn more about some of the toys featured in this episode, or want to follow us on social media, links are in the description below this video.